Notre Dame and USC has been a hot topic, and not just this, but just rivalries in general. I'll go to Tom first on this, just because USC, kind of a fake Big Ten team at this point, with how crazy college football has been here lately. The Notre Dame USC rivalry specifically, I've also wondered about this. What if Florida State, Florida, and Miami all end up in three different conferences? I don't think they will. I think Florida State and Miami eventually end up both in the Power Two. But what if they don't? What if Miami stays in the ACC? What if Miami goes to the Big 12? What if it kind of gets weird there? Are some of these rivalries, especially this Notre Dame one with USC, just thoughts around rivalries dying and that one in particular, Tom?
Yeah, this one's tough. Rivalries are dying with a lot of the conference realignment. I look at this one, and as a fan, I wasn't tremendously broken up, and I think it's because there's not a lot of heat in the rivalry itself. Like, it's not Texas, Oklahoma. It's not Miami, Florida State. It's not Georgia, Bama, or Bama and Auburn. It's not Ohio State, Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, those are contentious rivalries that are palpable when they step on the field. Yes, the teams play hard because they're big-time programs, but Notre Dame, my issue with them as a fan is they play a lot of dead rivalries. We've had a rivalry with Tennessee for forever. It's like, do the players give a shit? I mean, and then they play Stanford. It's like, we played them for forever. We played USC since 1924, 95 times or something like that. Do the teams like really care? I'm like, yes, like I understand you want to win the game and all that sort of stuff. And these are blue blood programs, but it's the unfortunate thing. I was a diehard fan within the Pac-12 days of I wanted to see the Civil War. I liked all those things, but is that a high-profile rivalry? Not necessarily. I think something like USC Notre Dame, because they are high-profile programs, they'll potentially find a way to do this, but they also are realistic in that they're like, all right, USC's within the Big Ten, and we're going to get a lot more baked in big time matchups. So we're going to be able to replace that audience. So it's not something like, we can never find a way to put together these numbers in the future. And unfortunately, the business of this comes into play so often. It's what bothers me mostly watching Notre Dame football, their season every single year. It's like, we have a long-standing rivalry with Purdue. Does anyone care? I would love to see Notre Dame put together a schedule of games that people actually care about and are actually going to be competitive with, as opposed to, Notre Dame's played Navy for a long time. I don't care. So for the most part, I hope that rivalries of this magnitude will be retained, because they're the ones that, yes, you stick with the history and the tradition, but I think it's been so proven by the television networks, the conferences, and hell, the teams, that they don't care about that stuff. They care about the here and now, the future, the business, all that sort of stuff. As a fan, I would like to see more regional stuff get going. Like, give me Indiana versus Notre Dame on a far more regular basis, because there is genuine heat there. You know what I mean? Like, I would like to see Penn State versus Pitt. Give me the backyard brawl again. Like, I would like those things rejuvenated. But again, if it doesn't make dollars, it won't make sense.
What's interesting here is Notre Dame did just set up a long-term, not rivalry, but long-term TV deal with Clemson.
Yep.
Now, Clemson's obviously in a much different position where higher TV ratings directly impact their bottom line because of the ACC's deal. And so Clemson may be a little bit more desperate to jump into something like this. Not desperate, but just a little more willing to set this up outside of it. And a 10-year deal for playing every single year is quite unheard of in today's college football. And there's obvious reasons why Clemson did it. But aside from just that, it's interesting to me that Notre Dame was willing to do this with Clemson and not USC. And I think that does a little bit speak to where USC is as a program right now. Now, still a national brand that, maybe Lincoln can get it turned around, maybe not. But does Clemson Notre Dame, I think that's an interesting kind of side to it is, the Notre Dame USC rivalry's lost, but Notre Dame didn't seem to be wiping any tears from their eyes, because they just did what they could have done with USC with Clemson.
Is it more of a long-term bet that we think where Clemson is going is stronger than USC, to your point? And then also not just within their conferences they're in now, like assuming USC has no reason to leave the Big Ten necessarily. Clemson has reason to leave the ACC. So is that betting that maybe like, X amount of years down the line in this rivalry, all of a sudden we'll be playing an SEC team every single year, and that will help us? Notre Dame consistently comes under fire for strength of schedule, so I could understand them wanting to upgrade in that department. It appears Dabo's not necessarily going anywhere. So I think it's a safer bet to have a consistently strong opponent on the schedule to go with Clemson than with USC. USC, yeah, you have the similar notoriety, attraction, all that sort of stuff. But I think where Clemson can go, there's a higher ceiling, I guess.
Look, as somebody that grew up in a Notre Dame household, I'll speak for the brand internally. There are people who are pissed off about this. And you know what? Well, they should be, because there's a lot of reasons why this rivalry carries ample weight. It's more than just a matchup between the Trojans and the Fighting Irish. It's a standard of college football that a lot of people are wanting to still embrace. And so I'm going to go ahead and defend Lincoln Riley for a second, because I don't think that he is running away from competition. I don't think that he is trying to make the schedule easier for the Trojans now that they play in the Big Ten versus in the Pac-12. I think this has everything to do with scheduling. You got to look at the overall flight standards for teams on the West Coast that are playing in the Big Ten. There are going to be weekends where they go to State College, and then the next weekend they go to East Lansing, and then they're home for 2 weeks before they go to Champaign, Illinois. And those are conference games. And so now you got to throw in the travel experience for Notre Dame and say, why are we going to continue to make that ample process when all it does is hurt us as a program? It doesn't help us with wins. We end up now missing out on the college football playoff and missing out on certain revenue when all these other teams in our conference that have 9 other conference games have got to play, I don't know, Akron. They get to play Georgia State. They get to play FCS Austin Peay. That's one of their non-con games, and we got to play this matchup where we have to travel right after traveling the week before to Piscataway, New Jersey. It's unfair. Now, with that being said, there's a way that the NCAA could do this. There's a way the Big Ten could do this. Make the game either one of two things. Number one, within the first 2 weeks of the season, that way you guarantee your roster is fully healthy and you keep the ambiance of the rivalry. Or number two, make sure that whenever you are scheduling these matchups, if it is Notre Dame having to travel to the West Coast to California, USC's at home for 2 games in a row. That way they don't have to worry about making that travel lodge. They can actually be welcome. Or if they got to travel to South Bend, they get to stay at home before they have to make that travel. You can make this work if you want to, but the problem is that nobody seems to want to do that. And I don't really care if USC is saying, you know what, Notre Dame has an easier pathway to the playoffs because of they're a fake ACC school. Number one, they're an independent. They don't need to worry about the ACC because if they have the deal with NBC. If anything, the ACC is making sure that they schedule games against Wake Forest and Virginia, and you throw in NC State or maybe you throw in a Duke every once in a while because of they need that revenue more than Notre Dame needs that revenue. So honestly, when you talk about the ACC welcoming in Notre Dame and then saying, hey, you don't really need us, we actually need you a little bit more, that's why you have this game that means so much to them. Because if the Clemson game is going to do wonders for the ACC and for Notre Dame, I think it can do wonders for both USC and Notre Dame. I hate the fact that we're taking away this rivalry. I understand the reasoning. I don't think it has anything to do with the level of competition or the fact that Notre Dame or the USC is afraid of having to go face off against the Fighting Irish because it could hurt their chance of going to the postseason, or that Lincoln's running away from overall great rosters. I think this has everything to do with scheduling and the way that the Big Ten is built right now with having these conference games that are cross country. But you can make it work if you choose to. The Big Ten and Notre Dame just have to play even keel and say, hey, when we're hosting you, you are not allowed to play, you are not allowed to have back-to-back road games afterwards if you're USC. Or if we're coming to you, we get 2 home games afterwards to recoup, because it's unfair for us to have to go play against Rutgers and Penn State and Illinois and then Notre Dame when we don't get to have a home game in the middle of that process.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The other thing about the scheduling, USC does play Notre Dame next year in 2026.
Yeah.
I looked up the future opponents really quickly. And I do think that we are going to get a new scheduling model very soon with the Big Ten and the SEC playing each other more often, the premier matchups, because it is all about TV dollars. I will say the Big Ten's big boys are playing really good out-conference games. We know that Michigan's playing Oklahoma this year. Ohio State's playing Texas. Ohio State has Alabama on the schedule in 2 years. Oregon's is not as good, but a lot of these were done before they jumped in the Big Ten, but they've got Oklahoma State and Baylor on the schedule coming up. And, 5 years ago when those games were scheduled, they were probably more exciting than maybe they will be when they happen. Although I think Baylor's trending up right now. So I will say, like, USC, I think this may get fixed. I don't know if it's going to be a yearly thing, but I do think that with the new scheduling kind of model that we probably get within the next half a decade, this will get fixed. And if it's not USC playing a massive matchup against Notre Dame, it is USC playing a massive matchup against Georgia or against Texas or programs like that. I mean, shoot, that'd be a fun one for sure, thinking about 2005, 2006. But I do think that this will get fixed. I don't know if it'll be the rivalry that happens semi-annually or not, but I do think that scheduling will become more uniform and come to kind of a head. Again, going back to the NIL topic, when we get closer to an actualized power conference, power league type situation.
Look, I'm not trying to go ahead and keep this going, but just real fast, do you think it would be beneficial for Notre Dame? Because everyone wants to talk about their schedule and how easy and relaxed it is. Well, then you throw Clemson in. They're not going away quietly. Well, we took away the Michigan-Notre Dame rivalry. Just throw that one back in if you want to keep it regional, because guess what? That's going to be a great matchup. But if you want to say that Notre Dame belongs in the play, shouldn't Notre Dame at this point also, knowing that they're going to be scrutinized or criticized, say join a conference because you're in a conference for every other sport besides football, shouldn't they want to make sure that that USC, Michigan State, programs that actually have sustenance are on their schedule on the regular? Because if they beat their ass, congratulations, you lose the argument that Notre Dame is not good enough to be in the postseason.
I mean, I would like to see Notre Dame in a conference. I mean, if that's the question, I would like it more uniform, and I'd like more of that to happen. I do think the idea of Notre Dame's schedule being easy is maybe a little bit of a misnomer. Like, for the next 10 years, they play Florida State, Clemson, or Miami every single year. And a lot of those years, they played two of them in the same year. Now, Florida State being down certainly has changed things the last year or so. But I do think Notre Dame does play an okay to tough schedule. And so, I don't know. They never played. And the thing I have a Notre Dame buddy that we were always close in high school. And the big thing he always prided himself, they don't play that FCS level opponent. Now, do they play Purdue? And can you have an argument that, all right, well, what's the big difference there? I mean, there is a difference. So I don't think it's a competition thing with Notre Dame, because I do think they're playing a pretty good schedule most years, and they do schedule fairly well. They still have Michigan State on the schedule quite often. They do play Navy still. So I don't know. I think that Notre Dame does a decent job with it. I tried to scroll through real quick. They're obviously always going to have the ACC opponents on there. And I think with the ACC scheduling model that we've talked about, that's a big deal. They've got Texas and Arkansas on the schedule in 2028. So I think they do schedule okay out of conference. Well, I guess everything's out of conference, but I don't think I don't know who this falls more on. Likely USC, again, due to the travel and the fact that they're playing all those Big Ten schedules anyway. But I will push back on, or not maybe push back on, but I will point out that I do think Notre Dame schedules pretty effectively. They play in Blacksburg, against Miami, at Texas, or against Texas, against Arkansas, and against Clemson, all in the same year in 2028. Like, this idea that Notre Dame has an easy schedule, are there times it's easier? Yeah, but if Florida State's coming off a 13-0 and they play a better, regular season this year, we don't look at Notre Dame's schedule the same way that we do this year.
Yeah, but PJ, they're going to end up going 5-0 in those matchups and then lose to Western Michigan. That's what happens with Notre Dame football. Northern Illinois would like a word last year.
Hey, that was a tough. I bet when they scheduled Northern Illinois, they thought that was going to be pretty tough.